Wisconsin Fruit Bats. Good to see you again, man. One of my favorite dudes to talk to on the pod. So thanks for coming back on, dude.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it since our last one, which has been like 2 years.
Yeah, almost, a year and a half. You threw the word out weirdoism when we were talking about weirdness, and I've used that word ever since. It's my new favorite word.
Nice. Yeah.
Did you just pull that out of your ass on the
I,
spot?
I think I did because I think only you and I have ever talked about that. So, and I think it was like probably tapping into some specific kind of like Midwest high school version of that, sort of like find the find your people idea in high school.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we had that chat about how your freak flag just gets suppressed for so much of your youth, in a lot of environments.
It does, and then it's also like it's hard to identify people even and obviously like when you're like in high school and it's just kind of like the goth kids at the goth table or something like that, but then sometimes there's weirdos that are more hidden, and they're the weirdest ones, of course.
Yeah, totally. What have you been getting into outside of music? Obviously you got a bunch of touring coming up and that whole thing, but what's kind of been lighting you up, getting you pumped outside of tunes?
Nothing. Like I since I last spoke to you, I did last year was like the biggest touring year I've ever done in my life, which is crazy because I am older now than I ever have been, because that's what happens with the inexorable march of time. But I played like 113 shows last year. So and then I'm just getting started again this year, but I just had like a couple months off. But I didn't get into anything. I've just been like resting.
Okay. So do you feel like you feel a big void when you're not out touring, and then you just like, all right, we need to fill the calendar? Is that a feeling you have?
No, it's a complicated feeling, and it's especially complicated now because I'm like 6 days out from going on a really long one again. So you know how it is. It's I feel, I like the structure of touring is kind of nice. Like the where you're just like you know what you're in for every single day, which is kind of nice. And there is a distracting quality to it, but like it's easier for me to say that now, having a couple months off, because if you would have asked me that in like October of last year or something, I would have been like, get me out of here. Like all I want to do is be home. But it's I don't know. It's like tale as old as time for musicians and stuff. It's like such a love hate is the wrong word, because hate is too strong. But love / not love.
Well, what a cool thing to just still be doing it, and I think that's so many musicians' dream, to just show up to a venue, not have to worry too much about ticket sales. There's a crowd, boom, and it's a magical thing, because I think that's like the hardest thing to do in the arts, is like getting 100, 200, 300 people in a room in physical reality these days, when you're up against every piece of media ever on the internet.
Sold out shows are new for me, as of the past like 3 years. Like, so there was a previous 19 years of nothing, or like sort of very spotty, and like sometimes it's good, and then the next time you go to the place there's literally nobody there. Like I saw there was like some social media thing going around of like a woman who was on a book tour and like went and did like a reading at a bookstore to nobody, and it was very sad, and I felt for her, but I was like, that's happened to me a bunch of times. Like played to absolutely nobody, like for so long. And I remember sort of that kind of stuff like 10 years in, being like, I'm 10 years in, I'm like, I'm ancient, how could I handle this? And now that's like now it's like twice as long. So I don't know,
How did you persevere in those situations?
It sounds like a joke, but it's true that I don't think there's nothing else I could be doing, So that was like part of it, where I was just kind of like, this is just what I do. And also like little good things would happen every now and again that were like, okay, I take this as a sign, I can keep going. But like, I can't remember if we talked about this the last time, but I definitely like, I've like run into people where they're like, oh yeah, I remember talking to you, and like 2009, and you were like, I'm gonna quit. So I don't know. Like I'm like painting myself out to be like this paragon of perseverance and drive, but people have corrected me and been like, no, you were like miserable, and you're like, this sucks. I can't do this anymore. So yeah, it's
Hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah, you get addicted to the beatdowns in a weird way, I think.
Again, it's like, not to get all Midwestern with you, but it's hard not to. But it's a little bit like, it's there's a I do have a certain kind of like working class ethic with it a little bit too, and that's like, that's kind of highfalutin to say in a way. I don't mean to sound like I'm
No, I get it.
coal miner or something like that, but I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna keep doing this. So
Yeah, you have to do that. I mean, that's kind of the only way. And it's interesting to say. I mean, even when you were playing to kind of empty halls, is this still like, because your albums were put out on Sub Pop, which is a pretty legendary record label. So even with that infrastructure, it was still wobbly consistently.
yeah, it was and they were great, and it was there was a lot of aspects of that were so good for me, and there was really good moments. But like, so I put the first record out on this really small label, and we did a lot of like opening for bands. Like we toured with like Modest Mouse and the Shins and some of our peers from back then who were doing really, really well. And I think we were kind of able to, through that, kind of get on Sub Pop, because there was a little bit of this like burgeoning scene that we were sort of living on the fringes of a little bit. And it was kind of easier back then, I've always said, to just get like kind of sucked into the like, oh yeah, we'll give you they sort of gave us a shot, which is like rarer now. And then then you really see people making it, and it was like amazing. I was like, I'm on this like legendary label and everything. And then we like started to put records out with them, and it not much happened, like, and not to blame them or anything. It was just like, and maybe I wasn't like connecting with audiences yet, but yeah, it felt like this should be like taking off, and it just wasn't quite. But when I think back to it, I think it was like, I kind of blame myself a little bit, like for I really half-assed it with the live show. And yeah, like when I listen to kind of like Shin's records or something from back then, I'm just like, that was like, those were very fully formed thoughts in those songs. And yeah, it was basically, I was learning on the job, which is like pretty amazing that I was even allowed to do that.
Yeah, so you're like early 20s at this time, hey?
Like yeah, mid-20s. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you mean, like, by when you say half-assing the show? Like, legitimately mean you just didn't know what you were doing yet, or were you just partying too much, or what?
No, I wasn't partying. But I was like, it was definitely like there was an indie rock ethos back then that was like, you didn't have to be like some shredder or something to go out there. But the weird thing was, I was kind of trying to make this like intricate pop music too. So yeah, like I remember just sort of thinking back to the live shows, I was like, we did not rehearse very hard, and they were shambly, like, to say the least. And then sometimes with those things, you kind of like, you work through it and you learn how to do it, but I never quite. And lots of lineup changes and things like that, lots of kind of like on the fly, like, we got a new person, and they're just sort of like learning as they go. So it was never like the when I finally kind of learned how to like really double down on that and be like, no, you have to sort of like put some thought into these live shows, it really wasn't even until like 2015 or something. And I had some good bands before that too, but I just for myself, I think I didn't figure out how to like put my laser beam eyeballs out into the audience yet.
Yeah. It takes a long ass time, dude. I mean, there's so many components, even like dialing in your gear. I feel like that shit takes years, just getting to be a master of tones and like, oh shit, that frequency is making it a B- when it could be an A- or an A in this room. And that's a whole mission in itself,
It's a whole mission in itself. And I had like a contact mic stuck onto an acoustic guitar, and it could have been, if I was in some kind of cool punk folk band or something, it probably could have been a cool vibe, but it was just not working with me trying to sort of do these like melodious songs, like I think it was just sort of like a head scratcher for people.
And how soul crushing are lineup changes. Holy Lord.
Yeah, I had some really soul crushing one. I had some definitely like people bailing with 2 weeks notice and things like that, and going to other bands, and you know, it was like, I love everyone that I've ever played with too. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I had some real stinkers. Like it was fine, but it's like there's also band dynamics and things like that. So it was just like, I just remember there was kind of moments around 2010 where I'm just like, you know, and again, I'm thinking that I'm like so old at that point. And I now when I look back, I was a little baby in 2010, but like, you know, and I was just like still driving the van, often, and like not paying very well. So you sort of feel the need to let people do their thing a little bit. So doing a lot of like loading the van myself, and because I'm just like, you got, you know, but, and then just being like, but I'm also supposed to be the singer. And I remember running into this, like playing this really empty show in LA, and then like I'm selling my own merch after the show, and like it was pretty empty, but enough that like, you know, a few people were buying things. And then this like old drunk friend of mine was like, I couldn't talk to him because I was like talking to other people and selling merch. And he was like, whatever, Mr. Rockstar. Like, and I'm just like, I'm selling my own merch at an empty show. Like it felt very, where I was just like, do you not understand like what's happening here right now?
Yeah, no, but of course, like how would people know? You know, it's
yeah. And then I had to, that night I actually had to drive the van myself to Portland from LA to like just like do this crazy 18-hour overnight drive.
Oh, yeah.
It was basically just like whatever the antithesis of glamour is, that it was that.
So mostly what it is. Yeah, if people only knew, like if people could only see the pathetic moments like behind the stage or whatever, you know, like I kind of try to journal those or get them on video, because to me they're just that's even like more real than the show a lot of times, you know, and it's often hilarious in retrospect.
Oh, it's so hilarious. And I oddly remember all that stuff in like a very funny, fond is not the right word, but like in sort of a funny way. And like I certainly remember that stuff better, which is like maybe not good. You sort of remember the bad stuff, but like there maybe just wasn't a lot of like high highs back then. There was more low lows, and then also tons of fun too. But the fun was like, you know, kind of like low level, just humming along fun. Just
well, it's like Super Mario Brothers. You like truck along, and then you occasionally get to eat like I call them morello mushrooms. Like you eat a little mushroom, and you're like, boop, and then you know, it kind of keeps you trucking through level 2 and 3 until maybe you can stay in the game long enough to face the super boss at the end, which I don't know what that would be in music, but hopefully there's no overlord at the top trying to strike us down.
I think there is.
Probably is.
Yeah.
It's got to be the algo, dude.
Yeah.
The algorithm.
The algorithm is actually like a sentient dragon monster that you have to.
Yeah. I don't think it wants you to do well, but I could be wrong. Maybe that's because I'm not doing as well as I could be doing. I don't know. Maybe because I suck at math. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this like, it is fun and funnier to talk about the bad stuff from before though too. So
yeah, give me one of the staples of the show is like, give me a good soul crushing night for you, you know, where you did think about calling the game, or maybe it was the night where you saw that guy in 2009 and you're like, yeah, man, thinking about quitting. Anything hilarious and demoralizing?
I have an amazing one, and I'm actually slated to do a podcast called like Worst Show Ever or something.
Oh no.
Where I'm supposed to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. I'll tell the paraphrase version, since like I have to tell the whole detailed version on this other podcast, so it's totally fine. So okay, here's the paraphrased version. In 2000, maybe I can't remember when it was. I want to say 2007, but I could be off by 2 years in any given direction. This guy who was the A&R person, my A&R person at Sub Pop, was tasked with providing the entertainment for something called the Coalition of Independent Music Stores. So it's like all the big, cool, but indie music stores in America, the Amoebas, the Waterloos, etc. Have a conference.
Still?
I don't know if they do anymore, but
Okay.
like I have no idea anything about this conference other than the one time. So he was tasked with like providing entertainment, and like he was going to try to get like the Shins or Iron and Wine or one of the heavy hitters, and it was basically like through a weird course of events. Like originally they were even going to get like Beck or something to do it, and it was like they couldn't get someone blah 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 blah, and it was like we were like the 12th choice. We became entertainment for this thing. Is at a place called the Triple Door in Seattle, which is like a kind of like a city winery, like listening room. Like you eat dinner and there's like tables and stuff too. It's got that like very clean, kind of classy listening, almost like a jazz club or something sort of thing. So we are playing, and it's basically we're playing for essentially a bunch of like upwardly mobile, mean record store clerks that hate us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Been fed Thai fusion cuisine and are eating. And like I kind of come out and I like make a little witty banter joke for the first thing, and just like absolute silence. And I'm like, okay, sometimes that happens. And then we finish the first song, and it's not only no applause, like it's no applause, and like people with their backs to us and just eating, and you sort of realize like you're sort of singing your heart poetry, life stories, and like, but you are absolute dinner music, for sure. But to add incredible insult to injury, the funniest part was within my frame of view, it was either in a backstage room that was lit up, or it was like in the back of the room. The band Postal Service were getting presented their gold records. Or their Give Up record. So as I was playing like this horribly humiliating show, I was looking at my and Ben's a friend and everything too, and a great guy. So I wasn't like it's my enemies getting rewarded, but it was basically like me playing this show where people like did not give a fuck, like and like beyond. They didn't even dislike it. It just like it was wallpaper, and then watching this other band who were my peers get rewarded with their 500,000 albums.
Sure. Yeah. Well, if it makes you any feel any better, Eric, nobody has ever gotten a reaction from a record store guy ever.
It's true, and it's like I don't even mean to like put down record store guys either, but there was like that's a funny aspect to it too. Is that I
love them, dude. I love how much. Like, and I do a lot of DIY distro and stuff. So like I kind of have like become pals and acquaintances with a lot of these cats that have like, I feel like just start at the beginning completely hated me because I'm like bringing them like consignment records and like basically creating work for them to do in their books and stuff. So they hated me. But over time you persevere, you kind of kill them with kindness a little bit. And, you kind of I think once you start actually tapping them for advice and you ask them like, hey, what's a good jangly guitar pop record from the early 2000s, like give me some recs, then I feel like they start giving you points because they're like, oh, this person's curious and they know fucking everything, like more than the algorithm, so
they're the original algorithm. I have nothing but love and respect for the independent record store. I mean, it was like it wasn't like I was playing for a bunch of like evil oil executives or something like that too, but it was more just like it wouldn't have really mattered who it was, but that was a funny detail.
No, it's like a Simpsons episode, I get it.
The utter rejection of it, and then also to be sort of where I'm like in my line of vision is like someone who's having like the utmost of acceptance and massive success, like while I'm just sitting within my failure.
I get it. Well, two things. I think that your music probably seeped into the subconscious of all those record shop guys, I mean, maybe it put you on their radar, and who knows, dude, maybe that like indirectly sold you a couple thousand records over the next 10 years. Who the hell knows? But
who knows? It was an experience at the time though that was like soul crushing. But even at that moment, I knew that I was like, this is really funny. That the irony of it was amazing, and was deeply aware of it. And I just kind of like, it was definitely one of those shows where you just kind of like close your eyes and get through it. Just
of course. Oh yeah, I've been there, man. But how interesting. Like you've you were kind of in this circle, and you say at the fringes, but you're like at the fringes of this music scene of like some heavy fucking hitters. So I could see where it must have been like really cool to be like, oh, I'm kind of like in-ish, but at the same time, all your friends are like selling like hundreds of thousands of records. So I could see that where that would be like a confusing place to be. You know, it's like the traps of comparison and that whole game.
Yeah, and I'm not like I was always like I always felt like the sort of the rising tide lifts all ships type thing, and that I was able to I was like I was proud of my friends. I was never like I never had like some kind of like ugh, like I'm so jealous of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it was I do remember like a really early tour. It was even before we were on Sub Pop. Just sort of like but and Modest had been touring with Modest Mouse and kind of watching them like slowly get massive, and Shins were kind of like you could tell we're right on the verge of a breakthrough, and those were kind of like my two closest peers around then. This was like 2001, 2002, and we went on this horribly ill-advised headlining tour. Like we got a booking agent and everything. She's the same booking agent for those bands as well. So and we just kind of I don't, and by we I mean me. I just was like it's gonna happen for me now too, because it's like it seemed to be happening to everybody else, and I was like it's a given. Like I've got this booking agent, and then like we went on the tour, and it was like one of those like every night nobody.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember in my little young guy like stupid monkey brain, like I just couldn't. I acted like a real jerk on that tour, I think too, because I was just like, I was totally disappointed. Like I thought that it was gonna be like a breakthrough for me, but at the end of the tour, that tour ended in Seattle, and I met some Sub Pop people, and it was like the one kind of okay show,
Sure.
of a bunch of really bad ones, and so that was like a little bright spot. But then ultimately, I was like, when I think back, I'm like, that's kind of the tour where you quit usually, like where normal people would be.
Yeah.
This is not for me. Like, and it's like I've been because I literally was like I've been at this for a year and a half. Like it always seems like a long time. A whole year and a half.
It's so easy to quit, dude. You know, I just I can't stress the presence of just staying in the game in anything in life. You know, I think too, like I think adventure is just so important. Like as we age, you know, people I think stop being really intentional about adventure, and it's very easy to like fall into your comfort zone. You know, you've got your awesome family or your awesome girlfriend, and you're like the living room is so cozy and the lighting's nice and you got your blankets. But I think that just that complacency and like staying in one place too long can really fuck you up. And I think you gotta keep the adventure alive. It keeps you fun, or it keeps you young. It keeps things fun. It's uncomfortable at first, but it's just so huge to staying entertained and staying fresh and staying excited and just staying curious. You know, I think I mean, I said this quote a million times, but it's like it's a good little kind of sample for what I'm trying to say is like, it's a Henry Rollins quote. And he goes, the hardest part about going for a jog is getting out the door, you know, but it's like, that is so huge. You just you gotta push through and keep the adventure alive no matter how old you are, I think.
That's 1000% what I think kept me going then too. Was like, it was probably a lot of factors and whatever. I just had something baked into my personality, but I loved the adventure. Like
Yes.
I had not traveled a lot growing up, like had not really left the Midwest yet. So I was just like, I want to go to like San Francisco. Like that. I was like, this is sort of a way to subsidize me just like going to these places that I'd always wanted to like spend time in. So, and I even remember like weird stuff like you'd get a tour booked and then there'd be one other weird show where you're like, where's Santa Ana or something, you know, like like, oh, I'm so excited, you know, you get like a little extra time somewhere and it's like shorter drives and you just like, it was like a, you know, I don't want to call it a vacation, but yeah, it was an adventure and just seeing other places.
What was kind of the first city that blew your mind from like an adventure standpoint, you know, outside of your hometown?
I think probably just like anywhere in California, like sort of going to California for the first time, going to Los Angeles for the first time, and the Bay Area, and just kind of um I was obsessed at that time, and still am in love with like the Birds and the Flying Burrito Brothers, and sort of like this SoCal country rock stuff, which was like a big like influence on me, especially starting. And so I think it was like going to this place of like a mythology that I had sort of been enamored of, and kind of like seeing it and being like, am I part of this somehow?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, I remember just sort of feeling that there, and
And then
being
you see the places that like your favorite bands sang about in their songs, kind of.
like we played the Troubadour and places like that, and just like I was so it was like really magical for me, and like sort of places I thought maybe I would never get to see, or maybe I would just see as a tourist, but like sort of feeling you're like part of a continuum or something like that. So yeah, those were my favorite places to go.
Totally. Yeah, I get yeah, that like going to Los Angeles for the first time, you know, even if you're nobody, you go there, it's sunny, you see the Capitol Records building, you're walking around Hollywood, you have a meeting with a guy who works in the music industry. You kind of have that moment where you're like, I'm really doing it, I'm somebody right now,
Yeah,
even if it's a myth in your own brain.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and just being there, just the way it looked, and it was so different looking.
Hell yeah. What about first time out of the country? Where'd you go?
So it's kind of crazy because Fruit Bats never we so early on, this was like a real kind of uh a weird thing that happened to me that still sort of reverberates with me within my career, oddly enough. Was like, so first Fruit Bats record comes out on like a small label, but kind of got like some good press in the UK, and people were like, I actually like got hooked up with like a booking agent over there and everything, and it kind of seemed like, because I think in the UK they sort of liked the brand of music that I was doing, and like it was an easy place if you were like sort of new and doing something interesting. They'd be like, come on over, like play this festival, do this thing. And so I got an agent, and he's like, cool, like I'm gonna start getting things together for you, like. And then I was like really young, and then I was just like, hey, how do I pay for this? And they're like, well, you have to pay for it. And I was like, I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have any money. I had no like family members to pay for plane tickets or anything like that, and I just didn't go. Like I literally couldn't go. So I was like, it was like my first big opportunity.
Oh,
and
shit.
yeah, and I was like, now I would, looking back, I might have been like, you got to figure out a way to do this, but like I just couldn't go.
So you were legitimately broke at that time.
Oh yeah, I mean I was broke until like 4 years ago.
Nice.
But
Nice.
like I was like beyond broke. I could like, I had, my rent was like 200 something dollars a month, and I could barely pay it. So like, and I had there was no one's going to give me a credit card to, and certainly not one alone enough to like get me plane tickets, like 5 plane tickets or something to London. Like it seemed, it was truly impossible.
Sure.
So,
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was 5. Yeah, that's
yeah, or
heavy lift.
maybe it was going to be 4. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I wanted to bring the band over and play like whatever, some festivals and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a funny thing that you don't. And again, it's weird because now I've become such a hard worker. Like now I'd probably like come hell or high water, I'd figure out a way to do it. So we sort of lost any momentum we had there. And then it took us years to get back. And then the kind of subsequent 2 times going and really like buckling down to try to tour the UK, I lost astronomical amounts of money. So it was almost like, like the gods laughing, whereas like you couldn't afford to come here before. Now at least you have a credit card, but also we're gonna eat you dry. So it's funny. We've never really like regained footing with that. Like we actually went last year for a few shows, and it was really, really good. And like at this point, we've just been around long enough that we have like a cultish fan base there who will come out and be very happy, and it's a very like loving and cool experience. But it's like our sort of reach there is like similar to what it would have been in the US like 10 or 15 years ago, you know. Obviously with like a better vibe and a bigger catalog and stuff to work with.
Yeah.
Like doing better. And I'm still just like, I can't make money over there either, so I just like lose. But like yeah, so I think the very first show abroad we ever played outside of Canada was Turin, Italy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, strangely enough. But like, yeah, so we're like a very unseasoned like European and UK touring band, basically. Like we're an obscure item over there.
Well, I think your trajectory is inspiring, probably for a lot of younger bands, just a testament of staying in the game and stuff. Was there ever like a was there ever a moment that like really moved the needle? And I don't think I asked you this last time, forgive me, but or what is it just like a long fucking 20-year burn of tiny victories?
It was, I put it this way, it was like a 16-year burn of tiny victories, and I mean tiny. And the one big victory that happened sort of in the middle of that was I joined the Shins for like essentially like 3-ish years of touring.
Wow.
And what that did for me was, well, it was like the ultimate, like, now I really got to do this, because you kind of like, you don't put that toothpaste back in the tube, you know, like once you've sort of been in a world like that. But and you know, it was a tour salary. I wasn't like, I'm not like making residuals off of that or anything, but it was like, it was the first like real paying gig I ever had doing music, you know. And I was able to kind of like after that, I was like, it had been, you know, I was able to kind of hustle my way through the music business just doing that, which like before that I hadn't been able to do. So that was a big thing. But then I went back and had to kind of like eat shit again with fruit bats and and like after having like had all these insane experiences, you know. But I was like, I still like have the thing of mine that I want to say. So so then so it was like tiny victories. And then in 2016 I had this song, Humbug Mountain Song, like on a record, and the record itself was like okay, it like did pretty good. And we did a really cool tour with My Morning Jacket that was like one of those good kind of tours where it actually like worked. You know, the way they say it's supposed to, that it often doesn't, but like where we had this very connective touring experience. I kind of got my sea legs playing live. It was just like a lot of things came together. And then that song, Humbug Mountain Song, off of that record became kind of this weird runaway hit in like the streaming world and college radio and stuff like that. And it was like we played 2 shows in the UK on that tour, and we played in London to like 120 people, which is like, I always say we're way bigger in Missoula, Montana than we are in London. But like played in London to like 100 people, then played at the Green Man Festival, and like no one really knew who we were. And then when we played that song, everyone stood up and sang along, and I was like, oh, cool. I guess that song is a thing. And that was sort of organic in its own way too. That sort of like over the course of like a year and a half, I was like, oh yeah, that song is like big. But it wasn't like from a sync or anything like that. It just sort of like caught on somehow, I think, like on radio. And then after that, that label folded, and then I didn't have a record label, and I was totally like in the weeds like again in like 2017 18, and I was like, I might not get signed to a record label, like couldn't find one. And then like Merge came along, which is like a miracle because it's an amazing label. And that was a pretty big thing, you know. And then it felt kind of like I had that song, and then I'm 18 19 years in now, and then now I've been like given this beautiful record label opportunity. And then I made Gold Past Life record, which was like had some other like really connective songs on it. But that was part of me just being like, I gotta like crush this, because I was like, I've botched a lot of opportunities over the years, and this was a moment where I was like, I'm not gonna botch this. I'm gonna make like a killer record for this label, you know, and come out of the gates.
Yeah, you got to peak in the playoffs, Eric.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
It's
because
like
yeah.
the big ones don't come around too often. And I think once you do it long enough and you've got that work ethic, you're ready. You're ready when those things happen. But man,
Yeah,
I like
I was
all
ready.
the
I was
time. Yeah.
43 years old, like when I finally like figured my shit out. So, which is like it was like sort of felt like a long time coming, but I was like, it's up to me. So
And you don't have kids, do you?
no kids.
Was that ever on the cards?
Yeah, I mean, I like, yeah, and it's kind of like that was part of some of the great sadness of my mid to late 30s, but like sort of I'm around the corner on that now. But yeah, no kids.
Yeah, that's something I'm kind of wrestling with right now at the moment, but because it's like you kind of risk giving up the art in that sense. I mean, not entirely and not necessarily, but I mean, I've asked a bunch of my friends about this, and some of the feedback I get is, well, you'll still be able to make music, you'll still be able to do art, but it probably won't be full time anymore. And to me, that is just like such a sacrifice and scares me so much. But
Many of
who
my
knows?
mates and collaborators, because I actually, at a certain, once you get to a certain age, like a lot of them have kids. So, and they do it like, and it is full time, but it's like, I see how hard it is. Like, and I'm not like, I see how hard it is. And I empathize, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to be them in that particular moment, of like trying to juggle those things. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's profound and exciting. And I don't know. I'm so lost in that arena right now. But I'm just having such a good fucking time, Eric Johnson. Like this is like, I feel like I'm hitting a stride. I feel like I'm less of a head case than ever. I kind of have my shit
Yeah.
together. Like
Yeah.
life's really fun right now. So I don't want to like throw a big wrench in it and disrupt it right at this moment,
No, yeah, you're crushing it from what I can see.
Oh, well, thanks, man. I mean, I've never reached any grand success to where you guys are at, but I got time, just got to stay in the game. You got any advice for me?
Everything that I've said, I don't know. I think you're already doing. From what I can tell, you're doing it. How old are you?
36.
36. Okay, so you're exactly 10 years younger than me. So you're gonna be absolutely crushing it in 10 years, and hopefully sooner.
Pretty much all I need is like somebody to just tell me everything's going to be fine, and then it'll work out. It kind of, you just gotta believe it.
I think we have as humans, we have and maybe like, I certainly have this tendency is like, you want to fix or you want to solve things and fix things all the time. And, which is good in some ways, rather than someone who is like completely out of control at all times. But like, yeah, the everything is going to be fine thing is like, that is a huge thing that we've all been grappling with for a while now. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I would love to hear that too.
Dude, I mean, it carries a lot of weight, I think, when people are just optimistic, because the baseline narrative, at least the last several years, seems to be everything's fucked, guys.
Yep.
America's shot. It's on the way out. Sorry, it was good while it lasted. We're toast. I mean, like, people love talking about that, and I think it's just been repeated so much, and the news cycle repeats it, that it's almost like the cool thing to say. It's like, I mean, and it kind of aligns with classic like hipsterdom, that frumpy, like, yeah, whatever, man, everything's fucked. It's like, so I think if we could just flip that on its head, and it's a pretty damn good time in the world. There's a lot of, the internet highlights all the shit that sucks. That's just how it is. So if we can just flip the narrative around and be like, it's going to be a good fucking year. I really think it is. There's a lot to be pumped about.
Yeah, that's like, oh my God. Yeah, that's a whole digression right there. But I think, yeah, and just be pumped on your own micro level too, if you can.
Yeah, I often wonder, like, I've been grappling with this AI thing and like seeing how fast AI is coming and making songs, and they're like kind of shitty now, like the robot songs that are being written, but they're starting to get better really fast. And I kind of wonder how much time like human songwriters have left. And that's been like a horrifying thought. It's like, what if I can't be a songwriter anymore, or I can't make art that's of any use to anyone ever again, like I don't know, that would be tough. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, but that's like I've had that feeling forever before, even before I knew about AI songs. So I would remove that from your worry list.
Yeah.
I'm gonna allow you to take that one off.
Thank you, sir. I mean, it is a useless worry, as most worries are. You know, it's I'm sure you have plenty of moments in life now at your current age where you like some idiosyncrasy pops up or some nuisance pops up or some concern pops up that like 5 or 10 years ago you might have freaked out about. I know that happens to me all the time where it's like, oh, this girl I liked didn't text me back. Or whatever it is. And then I would like obsess about it and go down a negative toilet bowl of thoughts. And now it's just like so many of those thoughts you can kind of brush off as you've accumulated too much information in your older age to know that that should be a concern.
No, I still borrow trouble like crazy, actually.
Oh, that's a good term, borrowing trouble.
Yeah, which just like the one weird thing that spins you out where you're like, that's an unnecessary spin out. And you kind of know too that it's an unnecessary spin out, but you're like spinning anyway.
But surely you have slightly less spin outs each year, or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Less, I don't know, like yeah, I'm fairly stable, I would like to think, but like I'm as crazy as any creative person that has sort of or any person, I guess. But like, yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of craziness that you have to sort of do what we do too. So yeah, I mean, I get like people are always like, your music's so happy and nice, and I'm like, that's partly because I'm doing it to soothe myself, you know?
Yeah,
so,
totally. When was the last time you or what was the last thing you kind of spiraled out about?
I can't say.
Okay. That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's good to be a person, and it's rare to be a person. So I'm glad you strike me as a very mentally stable guy as far as songwriters go. And I think I told that to you last time, but it's good to see someone doing it who's got their shit together and is optimistic about the future. You know, it's inspiring for me to see that.
I have my instabilities, but I have a perspective on the instability. Like I can look at them, and my one thing that I do have that is a talent with that is like the ability to kind of like zoom the camera out a little bit from myself. So when you're like freaking out. So when I used to like, I'm a real maintainer in general too. Like when I was younger and would take like a lot of acid and stuff, like, which I don't do anymore, but like, I probably should again at some point, but like,
yeah,
probably be better at it now. But like I would take acid and I would be like having a really bad trip or freaking out or something. And like the next day I'd be talk to my friend and be like, man, I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I was crazy. And they would be like, you were fine. You seemed where I'd just be like, hey, how's it going? Like, but inside it's like insanity is happening.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm also a good maintainer, but like, which is probably not a good way to be. That's sort of like repressed, you know.
Wait, when you say maintainer, what do you mean exactly?
To maintain, you know, to like sort of maintain your composure, maintain like your sort of exterior sanity. So
same.
But like now, I think that is a talent, and then you have to like be able to do that and still kind of have like the perspective on sort of both sides of it too. So I have gotten better at that. That does come with age.
Yeah, what's worked for you in like your daily kind of routines to just stay solid mentally?
Just keep working, you know, like and that's sometimes that's good or bad too, because that's like workaholism is a thing too, and like where you're sort of running from something, but it can give you a lot of productivity too. But exactly the thing I was just saying, just like the occasional zoom out, you know, and just be like, let's look at this from the slightly outside perspective. Try to do that like all day, you know?
Yeah, I think if you can like imagine yourself outside civilization, whatever that looks for you, then looking into civilization and your life as a person in our current society, going to work, doing your job, going to the grocery store, all the worries can seem kind of silly. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Like, I think you get those moments of you get those little revelations when you spend like a full day in nature or you go on a massive hike. I feel like that really deletes so much fear and anxiety relatively quickly, just being outside of all this, hamster wheel or uh, need to produce or just illusion of safety that maybe civilization has for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very Buddhist and like and then again it's like we're in an era too where like some really important shit is happening and you need to sort of like check your perspective on that too, but also live in a granular way. And yeah, it's like I don't know. It's all very interesting, but I'm just like wake up every morning and try to like do a thing and be a good person.
Yeah, man. Well, you've got a great energy. I'm curious. You're such a songwriting workhorse. Do you have other creative aspirations or other creative mediums outside of music you like to work on? Do you draw or you do anything to switch stuff up in the arts realm?
I weirdly did one drawing like 2 years ago that I've used like now it's like turned into a tote bag on Merge, but like I've never didn't draw very much before or since, but it was like I really enjoyed it. And then I've tried to like recapture the energy and couldn't do it. Like I was just like I had a moment of inspiration and drew some really cool shit. But then I wanted to be a filmmaker before this music thing ever the music thing kind of weirdly came at me sort of from the side. It was like I knew I wanted to do. I was always interested in creative stuff. It was like the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I would probably have, if you would have asked me when I was a kid, I would have been like, I'm probably going to be a movie director, which is what I told people that I was going to be. And but also like I would have chosen anything. Like if you could have said like name your top 5, it would have just been like a writer, a movie director, a rock star, like maybe an actor, or just it had to be sort of in the like arts and entertainment creative field. It was like the only thing I was at all interested in. So I like, yeah, but I didn't go to college. I would have wanted to go to like film school or something. Like I wanted to go to college, but like
That could have destroyed you though, like
it
financially.
it might have, yeah. Like I don't have any college debt because and no college either. So, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like yeah, I write a little bit every now and again. Like, and I have done like a little bit of acting and voiceover stuff. So, which is interesting, but like, I don't know. When I was doing film scores, it was sort of like getting a little more ensconced into the film world, and I haven't done one of those in a little while. But I think at one point, after years of being like, what do I need to be doing? And like, I think because the music biz was so challenging and I always was just like, no, I'm going to do something, like that sort of flights of fancy. Once like Merge happened and stuff in 2018, I came up with like the bird in hand theory where I was like, this is like what I do is music now, like, and writing songs and like making records. Which is, and that's a really cool bird to have in your hand, like, where I was just like, don't distract yourself with like, I mean, certainly like have other dreams and do other things too. And like, and I kind of do those, but like right now I'm just totally like, it's like what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah. Do what's working now, double down on that shit until it's not working anymore,
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was just pulling up your discography. 2020. Okay, 2020 you put out 3 records, or one's a live record.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're under the more, it looks like you're under, oh no, and then 2011, 2016 you took a bunch of years off. Okay, so you've taken some chunks of time off between a few albums. What did you do during those times when you're like 4 or 5 years between records? What were you doing creatively? Just writing a shitload?
No, in 2011, like I shut down Fruit Bats. Like I thought I like kind of quote broke the band up, like, and I was like, I put out a record under my initials, EDJ, and it was like a total failure. Like it did, it like no, like I lost like a manager, booking it, like I lost all infrastructure. I'm like 13 years into my career at that point, which seemed like a really long time. And got. Basically was just like fully back DIY and had even like been in the shins before that too, so like was like had been like playing on Saturday Night Live and like playing giant festivals and stuff like that, and then kind of was just like really just doing my best to get like shows on a Tuesday night somewhere to play to nobody. So I got, it was like but it was really sad time and had some really bad things happen in my personal life then too, and like kind of made music about it. But when I look back to the time, it was kind of like I look back on it a little bit fondly too, like it was like a reset and kind of like a muscle building exercise too, of like sort of pure creativity, and also me sort of being like, it's okay, I still can like do this any way that I want. And if I have to just go back to being like boutique DIY thing, I like this too, and like I'm capable of it. And then that was kind of like a few years later, kind of revived the name Fruit Bats, because I was like, if I revive that name and I can get things to happen again for myself, I would rather that happen. And also like I was feeling like I'm doing it on my own and robust and everything too. So I did that, and I did manage to kind of like get sort of infrastructure back up and running. And My Morning Jacket tour and stuff, which was like big. And that was so that was kind of like, there was like a before and after with Fruit Bats. And it was really that between 2011 and 2016 was like this 5-year period of like reset. And
sometimes
like,
you need those really brutal, like heavy moments to bring you to your knees and restart you and like level you up to Eric 2.0 or 3.0.
It was super needed. And when I look back to it, it was like there was a lot of shitty moments to it and a lot of moments where I'm like, I knew I was learning, and but like, and then after that I got more prolific because I think I became a better writer, because like through the adversity and stuff and whatnot of that period, I got like, I think I became more direct, like with my feelings, and was able to write a little bit better. And then we kind of entered this age of like, for better or worse, like that you have to do more stuff too.
Yeah.
So, and I work pretty well with like a deadline a little bit, not a deadline, but just like hey, we need a song from you or something. I sort of enjoy that. So because even if it goes nowhere, you wrote a song, and like that sets up the next one or something of like of an idea, or they're all kind of like part of a piece. So it was like this when I turned, basically it was like 2016, I turned 40, and that was like I like had kind of floundered through my 30s, and I was just like, it's been better since then. But again, it's like, I'm not, it's partly luck and partly like, I think I just got better at doing this too. It just took a really long time to learn.
Well, respect, and, respect for just keeping your head down and just keeping trucking, I think that's, sometimes like when you're like trying to persevere and shit's hard and it feels like you're not making any progress, sometimes you just keep your head down, you keep going, and all of a sudden you like look up and you're, what felt like no progress, it accumulates over time, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got pretty far in the last year or the last 2 years, just from putting the horse blinders on and moving forward, so
I'm always kind of ready for the fall, the inevitable, like, and not in a negative way. I think hopefully in like a realistic way, but because I did those first however many years, especially the first like 15, were so hit and miss, and like way more misses than hits. And like sometimes you'd be like, oh man, we played this New York show, and there was like, finally people came, and like we had like a sold out 200-person show or something, and you would like go back the second time and like no one would show up so it wasn't like the whatever the sort of standard music business, like you build on this, and it was like, it was super peaks and valleys, with a lot of valleys. So I'm either shell shocked by so many years of that, or I have some kind of just like realist side to me. It's not really pessimist either, where I'm just like, this will probably suck this time or whatever.
Right. And there's that's a good point, how there's not really any justice in a lot of things. And if there's like younger bands listening, how maybe you'll appreciate this. Like, you can go to a room, say you can go to New York City, sell out 200 tickets, absolutely kill, like play a tremendous show that people love, and it doesn't mean there's going to be more people there next time, which is a weird thing because I don't know what it is. People are busy. There's too many options, or what. But I think that's just like it's going to be a feast or famine thing for probably forever. So
Yeah,
I think no
the
reason to get down.
Yeah, the justice thing that you said is totally right, where it's just like, you don't deserve this, which is like a horrible thing for somebody to hear. It sort of depends on how you're raised too or something, but like where it's just like, this is not a given for you. And my thing I always say to younger bands is just like, go out there and do it and like be good if you can. And also like you don't want to know the odds, like they're terrible.
Yes.
Like and like we're like no matter how good, like even if you're like incredible out of the gates, like the odds are still like I remember going on like our early tour with Vampire Weekend opening for Shins, and that was like one band where I was like, they got a shot, like you could definitely sense, but I was like, still their shot was like 40%. I don't know, I'm just making up arbitrary numbers, but I'm like, they got a huge shot, but it's still only 45% or something like that.
Sure.
Where most normal bands that aren't Vampire Weekend, your percentage is like 1% or something. You
gotta have blind faith, baby. That's the only way.
Yeah. So I I always just say it's just like it is like not a good business to get into, A, like as a quote business, and then B, just as like a you better be strong, and sort of like not be fragile, like, because I always am like, you're either, again, it was like after that first tour of mine, that really terrible one, I was like, I should have quit. Like that's like a normal, really like like clearly I'm not a normal person,
No, I mean, just
like, this is horrible, I'm going home.
Just it's very simple. Just get numb to doors slamming in your face and everything will be fine.
And get used to the word no, because you're going to hear that more than anything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Eric Johnson, you're the man. Great talking to you. I always feel lots of energy after chatting with you. So this was awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, much love. You're all over the road. Any dates you want to plug, or is it just a whole U.S. tour?
The whole U.S. tour. Shows there's some shows are starting to sell. Some shows are selling out, and some shows are getting low. So yeah, check out the tickets. Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Great to see you. I'll see you next time in L.A.
Yeah. Great talking to you.
All right, my guy. Peace.
All right. Bye.